Okay, these are our last 4 questions we're working with. We're going to select all values of x that are points of intersection for the graph. Now, you have to be careful a little bit because you got to make sure that this doesn't have like an x squared. If it has an x squared, you may do the problem a little bit different. But I got y equals 5 minus x. And I'm going to use substitution here. So I'm going to replace the y here with 5 minus x. So that gives me x plus 1 squared plus, I got 5 minus x minus 3. So 5 minus 3 gives me 2. Now I got to solve this equation. Be careful with the squaring. So I'm going to do x plus 1 squared. So I'm just going to do it up here. X plus 1 times x plus 1. X times x. X times 1. 1 times x. 1 times 1. So this is going to be x squared plus 2x plus 1. Do the same thing with 2 minus x. 2 minus x squared. 2 times 2. 2 times negative x. Negative x times 2. Negative x times negative x. And I get 4 minus 4x plus x squared. Now there is a shortcut for squaring. Here's how it works. You can see it, verify it for each of these. First term times itself, it's x squared. Multiply these two together and double it. So I have x doubled is 2x. Last term times itself is 1. First term times itself, 2 times 2 is 4. Multiply these together, you get negative 2x. Double it, you get negative 4x. Last term times itself, x squared. Okay, so now we're going to see about solving this. So I'm going to gather my terms. So I've got 2x squared minus 2x plus 5 equals 9. Got to move everything to one side. So it's 2x squared minus 2x minus 4 equals 0. I can factor out a 2. Okay, then this guy, he factors to 2x minus 2. 2x minus 2, x plus 1. And mouse out of there. Solving this, I get x equals 2, and I get x equals negative 1. So x equals 2, x equaling negative 1. And it's kind of hard when you go through and try to plug in because things get kind of messed up and you have to really think about what you're having. So if I did want to check my answer, I could try it. Plug in 2, that means when x equals 2, y equals 3. So if I plug in 2, I get 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 squared is 9. 3 minus 3 is 0. So that worked. If I plug in negative 1, I get 0. And then I've got 2 minus 3 is negative 1. I plug my y value. When I plug in negative 1 here, I get 5 plus 1 is going to be 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. 3 squared is 9. But it gets kind of messed up because you have to kind of work with both your x's and y's. Okay, problem number 22. Find all intervals for which the part of the solution set for this equation. Okay, so I'm going to again change this to an equals. When we do inequalities in one variable, it's best to treat it as an equals and then test for different regions. So if I make this equals, I'm going to move everything to one side. So I've got 2x cubed minus 4x squared, keeping the largest power positive, minus 16x equals 0. I'm going to factor out 2x. This factors to x minus 4, x plus 2. So I got x equals 0, x equals 4, x equals negative 2. None of them are repeats. If you see a repeat, you're going to have to test each region. What happens on a repeat is you're going to get the same sign repeating, whether it's positive or negative. So, 0, negative 2, positive 4, open circles because I don't have equals. Okay, so it's typically going to go true, false, or false, true, false, true. So I'm going to plug in 1 into this equation. 2 greater than 4 plus 16. 2 is not. That's false. So that should be true here, and false here. So I could try another number like negative 1 to make sure it's true. We'd have negative 2 greater than. Negative 1 squared is 1. 4, negative 1 times 16 minus 16. Negative 2 is greater than negative 14, so that does work. So I want my trues. So now I got my answer between negative 2 and 0 and greater than 4. Okay, we have another substitution problem. Notice I have x squared plus 2x. X squared plus 2x. They're the same. So I'm going to let u equal x squared plus 2x. This gives me u squared equals 2u plus 3. Got to move everything to one side, keeping the highest power positive. U squared minus 2u minus 3 equals 0. Factors to u minus 3 and u plus 1. So I got u equals 3 and u equals negative 1. Oops. So now I'm going to go back to u. 3 equals x squared plus 2x. 0 equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. This factors to x plus 3, x minus 1. So I got x equals negative 3 and x equals 1. So there's x equals negative 3. There's x equals 1. Now I got to deal with the other one. So I got negative 1 equals x squared plus 2x. 0 equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. This factors to x plus 1, x plus 1. I got x equals negative 1, x equals negative 1. So I got the same number twice. I just have to make sure that I include it. So this one had 3 answers. Could have had up to 4, the way it worked out. Okay, last 2 problems deal with this graph. So one thing is to recognize each one. This is f of x. This graph down here is g of x. So we want to kind of look at each one of these. Now the graph labeled f of x, that's this one. We got to find out which equations it is. Well, I see an absolute value graph, and this one's a cube, and that's what all of them use. So you don't have to guess which one it is. For the absolute value graph, it is shifted to the right 4. So it's just going to be the absolute value of x minus 4. So I just got to make sure that I choose that. Well, there's really only one that's going to be a possibility. So you kind of already know which one it's going to be. It's true when x is linear. It doesn't matter which one has the equals either. For the cube, just to verify it, I am going to the right 6 and up 2. So that would have been x minus 6 cubed up 2. That does match with C. So both of them are the same. They both matched. Okay, now g of x is a shift of f of x. So I got to start with f and figure out what happens. So if I go over and I look at this, I'm going, and if you're not sure how much it goes, let's look at your numbers too. So I can see 7s and 4s. This right here it went to the left 7. So it's left 7, and then it went down 4. I'm just following an easy point. In this case, I did the vertex. I could have chose any point, but I think that's the easiest one to follow. So when I use my notation right here, if I'm going to the left 7, to do the opposite, so that's x minus 7, then down 4. So I'm looking for f of x minus 7 minus 4. That was D.